So we are moving people towards interview stage. So those who have left the service, it's been a tricky road moving from that confused state, moving to a state of identifying the types of roles that they want to do, and then they're in a position where they're landing interviews, which is a fantastic step, but it's certainly not the end of the road by any stretch of the imagination. So as people are approaching their first interviews after leaving service, it can be quite daunting, and they work in a very different way to how they've typically been used to. So you're at the stage now where you're interviewing people, which is a fantastic point to be at. So what one piece of advice would you give someone in their first interview after service?
I think the most important thing is to forget boards. Obviously, you've been doing boards over the 30 years, and it's a very different experience to having an interview for a commercial company. Like, it's completely different. So what I would say is have a look at who's interviewing you. Make sure you understand a bit about them, a bit about their background. And just as an example, so I'm on an interview panel, and I'm a senior safeguarding manager. So I would expect people to know what safeguarding is, but just as an example. So that's what my piece of advice would be.
Okay, that's interesting. And I think without question, I would advise people to do that. And I also think that's in the nature of the types of jobs that people have had previously. They're going to do their research. They're going to find out who they're speaking to, and they're going to go above and beyond to find out exactly about the company, the history, the stats. And that's fantastic. And that's in the nature and that's in the mindset of the type of work that they've done over however many years in the service. I would slightly question or not question that, but push back slightly on that and say, do that, but also don't come into the conversation with stats on the business solely. Also, you need to now start thinking commercially. And this is where so many people struggle in that transition. So not only have we done the research, but where is the value that I'm going to add to the business? So you can do your research about the company, what they're doing. Okay, well, how can I support that? What are my skills? Where can they add value to the business? So start thinking more commercially and start thinking about the value you can add. Because as a hiring manager sitting there, I know for a fact I don't only want to know that you've done your research. That's fantastic. It shows that you care. But I also want to know about how you're going to support the growth in the business. Everyone is quite selfish, if we're being honest, and you need to add value. And if you're not coming at it from the standpoint of how am I adding value, the chances of success are a lot less than if you come at it from a slightly different angle. So just reframe it and start adding value to your conversations. I think they're the kind of main tips, and really what needs to happen is you need to start building out an understanding of where your skill sets lie in interviews. If you get the first interview, that is fantastic. But what a lot of people find is they're going to go through several rounds and maybe several different interviews. So it's really important to start building up a picture of where your skills lie and maybe where you're falling short. Um, is there any other tips or advice? I know you're interviewing people on a regular basis, so you see people at the other side of things. So any other advice that we can share with people?
So I think it's having, like, don't be afraid to ask for feedback. So you might not be successful in your first interview, but you need to learn from that. So don't be afraid to ask for feedback, and most companies will do that, and be happy to share with you. And you might find out that you've just narrowly missed it because of a couple of things. So it's a kind of a learning process as well. So
Okay.
don't be afraid to ask that.
How would you be as open as asking for feedback on that first interview
Yeah,
during the
absolutely.
interview? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with that. In actual fact, I think if it was me and I was interviewing someone, I'd quite like to see that. I'd like someone to be open to learning, and to recognizing that there might be things that they could improve on.
Mm,
So yeah, no, absolutely. Don't be afraid. It just shows a little bit of confidence as well, and I think that's a
mm.
really positive step.
So almost have the interview, and that final question typically goes along the lines of any other questions for us. You would just go in and say, look, how did you find me today? Any feedback, and do you think that would be a positive?
I absolutely think it'll, but they might not want to give it to you there and then, but I would see that as a positive, and I think most companies would. So yeah, just go straight in and don't be afraid to ask. And it's always better. Obviously, it's always better to say something than just go, no, I haven't got any questions, because that's never good. So I think to show that little bit of willingness to learn would be seen as a positive, because there may be other roles coming up at the same company.
Amazing, amazing. There's some really good points there, and I think it's also important to bear in mind every case is different. If anyone out there is struggling and just wants a little bit of a steer with regards to interview prep, then shoot either of us a message. We'll be happy to help.